A boot slammed into the chest of an old man in a wheelchair. The chair rocked backward. One wheel lifted off the concrete. A coffee cup hit the ground and shattered. The old man's head snapped sideways. His cap fell off. 3 rows of ribbons caught the sunlight as it tumbled. Nobody moved. 370 Marines stood frozen on the parade ground. Their boots did not shift. Their hands did not move. But every one of them knew the name stitched on that cap. Every one of them knew the man in that chair. His name was Master Sergeant Daniel Calhoun. The man who kicked him laughed. He looked around for approval. He had no idea what he had done. What happened in the next 7 seconds left every Marine on that field speechless and sent the medics running across the concrete. Stay with me on this one. It was a Saturday morning at Camp Pendleton. The air was warm. The flags were up. The base had been awake for hours. 370 Marines were forming up on the parade deck. Their dress blues caught the sun. Their boots hit the concrete in unison. It was graduation day. Family day. The biggest morning these young Marines had ever lived through. About 50 yards from the formation, the family viewing area was filling up. Mothers in folding chairs. Fathers with cameras. Wives with babies on their hips. The smell of coffee drifted across from the canteen truck parked at the edge of the lot. A black sedan pulled up to the curb at the far end of the lot. The driver got out first. He was a young man in dress blues. He walked around to the passenger side and opened the door with both hands. He helped an old man out of the car. The old man was 81. He moved slow. His hair was white. His back was bent. The driver eased him into a wheelchair that had been folded in the trunk. The old man wore an old set of utilities. Faded green. The cap on his head had 3 letters stitched in gold thread above the brim. USMC. And just below it a name. Calhoun. His full name was Master Sergeant Daniel Calhoun. Retired. 41 years in the Marine Corps. Korea. Tutor in Vietnam. Drill instructor at Paris Island for 19 years. The men who knew him called him Iron Dan. He hadn't worn that cap in a long time. But this morning was different. His great-grandson was graduating boot camp. 3rd generation Marine in the Calhoun family. The boy was out there on that parade deck right now, somewhere in the formation, standing at parade rest. Daniel was going to watch him cross the stage and salute the colors. That was the only reason he had come. The driver was a corporal named Hicks, who had been assigned by the base to escort him. Hicks pushed the wheelchair toward the family area. Now here's the thing. Daniel Calhoun didn't always need a wheelchair. He could still stand on his own. He could walk if he had to. But his hip had been bad since 1968, and his knees were finished. The chair was just easier. His name was a thing of legend. There were Marines on that base who had served under him. Their fathers had served under him too. Some of their grandfathers. He was the kind of name that got passed down. The kind of name that made younger Marines straighten up when they heard it. The sergeant major of the regiment, a man named Lopez, had personally signed the order to bring Calhoun in by escort. He had said in private that if anybody on the base failed to recognize that name, they didn't deserve the eagle on their cover. Lopez was on the parade deck right now. Across the parking lot on the far side, a man named Marcus Reed pulled into a spot too fast. His tires squealed. His brakes hit hard. He yanked the gear into park and got out of the car. Marcus was 32. 6'2". Heavy through the shoulders. He worked nights at a bar off base in Oceanside, and he had been drinking until almost 4 in the morning. His eyes were red. His head was pounding. He was supposed to be picking up his girlfriend, who worked the family services office on base, but she had already texted him twice that he was late. He had a record: 2 assaults, 1 restraining order. He had lost his last 3 jobs over his temper. He didn't think any of that was his fault. He slammed the car door. He started walking toward the family services building. To get there, he had to cross the family viewing area. That was when he saw the old man in the wheelchair. The old man was parked right in the middle of the path. The corporal had gone to get him a coffee from the canteen truck. The chair was alone. Daniel was sitting quietly, his hands folded in his lap, watching the formation in the distance. Marcus didn't slow down. He walked straight at the chair. He expected the old man to move. The old man didn't move. He didn't see him coming. He was watching the Marines. Marcus stopped about 2 feet from the chair. He stared at the old man's face. He saw the cap. He saw the ribbons on the old utilities. He didn't read any of it. He just saw an old man in his way. He said loud, "Hey, you deaf? Move." Daniel Calhoun looked up. His eyes were calm, pale blue, the kind of blue that had seen things most people never see. He didn't speak. Marcus took a step closer. "I said move. You're in the way." Daniel's mouth moved into something that wasn't quite a smile. His voice was quiet. "Son, there's plenty of room around me." That was the wrong thing to say. Anybody who had ever been in a Marine Corps barracks could have told you what happens when somebody calls Marcus Reed's son. He had been in a fight at his last job over the same word. He didn't take it. His face went red. The red started at his neck and crawled up to his ears. "Don't call me son, you old." He didn't finish the sentence. He kicked the wheelchair instead. Now I want you to picture this slowly. Because what happens next, every Marine on that base would describe later as the slowest 7 seconds of their lives. Marcus didn't kick the chair. He kicked Daniel. The boot connected with the old man's chest, just below the ribs. The chair rocked backward. 1 wheel came off the ground. The coffee cup that the corporal had brought back and just placed in Daniel's hand flew sideways and shattered on the concrete. Daniel's head snapped to the side. His cap came off. It hit the ground spinning. The 3 rows of ribbons on his old utilities caught the sun. The old man didn't fall out of the chair. The chair settled back down on all 4 wheels. Daniel was breathing hard. His hand went to his chest. His face went pale. Hicks had been about 10 feet away, walking back from the canteen with his own coffee. He saw the kick. He froze for a half second. Then he dropped his coffee and ran. But here's the thing. Hicks wasn't the only one who saw it. Out on the parade deck, 50 yards away, 370 Marines were standing at parade rest. Their formation was tight. Their eyes were locked forward. They were not allowed to look around. But Sergeant Major Lopez was facing them. He was standing in front of the formation, looking out over their heads, scanning the family area the way he always did before a ceremony. He saw the kick. He saw the cap come off the old man's head. He saw the white hair. He saw the ribbons. He saw who it was. Lopez had been Calhoun's student at Parris Island in 1986. He had cleaned the man's quarters. He had shined his boots. He had taken a beating from the master sergeant once for falling asleep on a fire watch, and he had thanked him for it afterward, because he never fell asleep on a fire watch again. Sergeant Major Lopez did not move yet, but his hands closed at his sides. Slow. Deliberate. Marcus stood over the wheelchair. He was breathing hard. He was looking down at Daniel like he was waiting for the old man to apologize. like he was waiting for the old man to acknowledge him. Daniel just looked back at him. Calm, quiet, the same way he had looked at scared 18-year-old recruits for 41 years. Marcus laughed. It was a short, ugly laugh. He looked around. He expected somebody to back him up, or somebody to look away. He expected to be the biggest man in the parking lot. Nobody backed him up. Two mothers in folding chairs were staring at him with their hands over their mouths. A father had pulled out his phone and was filming. A young wife was already on a call to base police. Hicks was sprinting across the parking lot. Marcus saw all of it, and he made a calculation. Pretty fast. He decided he was going to leave before this got bigger than him. He turned to walk away. This is where most people would tell you the story ends. The kick happened. The old man is hurt. The bad guy walks. Maybe the cops show up later. Maybe they don't. The world keeps moving. Believe me, that is what almost every onlooker thought in that moment. Even Hicks, running across the lot, was thinking about getting Daniel medical attention first and worrying about the other guy second. Marcus took 3 steps toward the family services building. Hicks reached the wheelchair. He dropped to one knee. Master Sergeant. Sir, are you all right? Sir, can you breathe? Daniel's hand was still on his chest. He nodded once. He couldn't talk yet. The wind had been knocked out of him hard. Hicks pulled out his radio with one hand and held Daniel's wrist with the other. He keyed the mic. This is Hicks. Medical at the family viewing area. Now, a father from the family area had come over. He was a heavy man in a Hawaiian shirt. He looked at Daniel, then at the receding back of Marcus Reed walking away, then back at Daniel. He said, "Should somebody stop that guy?" Hicks didn't answer. He was watching Daniel breathe. The father pulled out his phone again. He started filming Marcus's back as he walked. Marcus was 20 feet away now. He thought he was free. He had his keys out. He was thinking about which back road to take out of Oceanside before the cops figured out his plate. The parade deck had gone quiet. Strange quiet. The kind of quiet that happens in nature when something larger has entered the room. 370 Marines were still standing at parade rest. Eyes forward. Boots in line. Marcus was congratulating himself. He was almost to his car. The old man was somebody else's problem now. He reached for the door handle of his Honda Civic. That's when Sergeant Major Lopez raised his voice. Attention! The word came across the parking lot like a thunderclap. It wasn't shouted. It was projected. Lopez had a voice that had been trained for 40 years to carry across parade decks, drill fields, and battle zones. He did not need a microphone. He did not need to repeat himself. 370 Marines snapped from parade rest to attention in a single sound. 370 boots hit the concrete at the same time. The crack of it bounced off the buildings. Marcus Reed stopped with his hand on the door handle. He turned around. What he saw didn't make sense to him at first. The entire formation had gone perfectly still. 370 young men in dress blues were standing like statues. Their eyes were forward. Their faces were like stone. Then Lopez's voice came again. Right face. 370 bodies turned 90 degrees in a single motion. The formation pivoted toward the parking lot, toward the family viewing area, toward the wheelchair on the concrete, toward Marcus Reed. Now Marcus had never been in the military. He had never been to boot camp. He had never seen a formation move as one body before. He had only seen it in movies, and he had thought the movies exaggerated. The movies didn't exaggerate. 370 pairs of eyes were now pointed in his direction. They weren't looking at him. They were looking past him, the way Marines look past things at attention. But the effect was the same. Marcus felt them. His hand fell off the door handle. Lopez started walking. He didn't run. He walked in a straight, measured line from his position, in front of the formation across the parade deck and into the parking lot. His boots clicked on the concrete with a steady rhythm. Clicking, clicking, clicking. Marcus opened his mouth. He didn't know what he was going to say. Behind Lopez, two other figures had detached from the side of the parade deck. One was the regimental commander, a colonel named Wexler. The other was a brigadier general who had come down from Washington to give the graduation speech. His name was Gene Rausch. He had served in Iraq under a battalion commander who had served as a young lieutenant under Master Sergeant Daniel Calhoun in 1972. The general was walking faster than the colonel. He had recognized the name on the cap from 20 yards away when he saw Hicks help Daniel out of the car earlier. He had been planning to walk over and pay his respects after the ceremony. He wasn't going to wait. 3 men were now walking toward the wheelchair from the parade deck side. Marcus stood by his car alone. 2 base police vehicles came around the corner of the Family Services building. Their lights weren't on. They didn't need to be. They knew where they were going. Marcus made a fast decision. He yanked open the door of his Honda. He dropped into the seat. He stuck the key in the ignition. The car started. He put it in reverse. A young Marine, a corporal who had been on traffic duty at the lot entrance, was suddenly standing behind his rear bumper. The Marine had his hand up. He was not armed. He was just standing there, blocking the car. Marcus laid on the horn. He shouted out the window, "Move! Move, kid!" The corporal didn't move. Marcus looked in the rearview mirror. There was another Marine behind that one. And another behind that. 3 of them. Then 5. They had peeled off from the formation in some way Marcus couldn't track, and they were now standing in a quiet line behind his Honda. He looked through the windshield. There was a Marine in front of him, too. 2. 3. He was boxed in. Marcus's hand was shaking on the gear shift. He looked to his left. Sergeant Major Lopez was now 10 feet from the driver's side window. Walking. Steady. The general and the colonel were a few steps behind. This is the moment Marcus's whole story changed. Up until now, it had been a parking lot scuffle. A bad one, sure. An old man in a chair, an angry guy with a temper, a kick. That kind of thing happened in this country every day. There would be charges. There would be lawyers. There would be a court date in 8 months. Marcus would probably get probation. He had done it before. That was the world Marcus thought he was in. It wasn't the world he was in anymore. Now here's the thing about a Marine Corps base. It is not a regular town. It is not a public street. The kick had happened on federal property. The victim was a retired master sergeant in uniform. The witnesses were 370 commissioned and enlisted United States Marines, including a brigadier general. This wasn't going to be a probation case. This was going to be a federal assault on a person over the age of 65, on a federal military installation, against a decorated war veteran in uniform, recorded on civilian video and witnessed by half a regiment. Marcus didn't know any of those legal terms yet. But his body knew. His chest went tight. His vision narrowed. His hands went cold even though he was sweating. He couldn't get a full breath. He thought he was having a heart attack. He wasn't. He was having the worst panic attack of his life. His body had finally caught up with what his brain had refused to admit. He had picked the wrong man. He had picked the wrong morning. And he had picked the worst possible audience that existed in the United States of America. If you're still with me on this story, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. Because what happens in the next 60 seconds is the part that ended up on the news. Lopez was now 5 feet from his window. Sergeant Major Lopez stopped at the driver's side window. He didn't look at Marcus. He didn't speak to him. He looked past him, through the windshield at the wheelchair 50 feet away. He raised one hand. A signal. The corporal behind the Honda's rear bumper stepped forward and tapped twice on the trunk. Lopez's voice was calm now. Almost soft. Sir, step out of the vehicle. Hands where I can see them. Marcus's hands were already shaking on the wheel. He fumbled the gear shift into park. His foot slid off the brake. The car rolled an inch. He hit the brake hard. He couldn't make his fingers work right. He opened the door. He swung his legs out. He tried to stand, and his knees gave on him. He went down on the concrete on one knee. His other hand caught the side of the car. Lopez did not help him up. 2 Marines from the formation stepped forward. They took position on either side of Marcus. They didn't grab him. They didn't have to. They just stood there. 22 years old. 6 feet tall. 3 days out of boot camp. Eyes forward. The base police were out of their vehicles now. 2 officers walked over. They had their hands on their belts, but their weapons were holstered. There was no need. The senior officer, a master at arms named Peters, looked at Lopez. Lopez gave a small nod. Peters spoke to Marcus. Sir, you are being detained pending charges of assault on a person over 65 and assault on federal property. Stand up, please. Marcus tried to stand. His legs didn't work. His chest was burning. His left arm felt heavy. He was sure now that he was dying. He started to cry. Big, ugly, choking sobs. Peters knelt down. He looked at Marcus's face. He saw the gray skin, the sweat, the tightness around the mouth. He keyed his radio. This is Peters. Send medical to the family viewing area. We have a second patient. Possible cardiac event. Conscious and breathing, panic presentation. He ended the call. He looked at Lopez. Lopez looked at the wheelchair. While all of this was happening, 50 feet away, General Rausch had reached Daniel Calhoun. The general did not approach a man in a wheelchair the way most people do. Most people bend down. The general did not. He came to a stop 3 feet in front of the chair. He came to attention. He saluted. Daniel Calhoun saw the salute. His chest still hurt. His breathing was still ragged. But he saw the star on the man's collar, and he saw the way the salute was held. Old habits don't leave a Marine. Not ever. Daniel Calhoun put his hands on the arms of the wheelchair. Hicks reached forward, but Daniel waved him off. Slow. Firm. The old man pushed himself up. His knees shook. His hips screamed. His back protested. He didn't care. Master Sergeant Daniel Calhoun stood up out of that wheelchair. He stood up straight, or as straight as 81 years and 41 years of service would allow. His chin came up. His shoulders squared. His right hand came to his brow. He returned the general's salute. The 2 of them held it for a count of 3. Then both hands came down at the same time. This is the part that nobody in the family viewing area will ever forget. Because what happened next was not a command. It was not an order. It was a thing that happened in 370 bodies at the same time, without a word being said. 370 Marines on the parade deck saw the old man stand. They saw him salute the general. They saw the cap on the ground 20 feet from the chair, the ribbons on his old utilities, the faded green of 41 years of service. They saw who he was. And without a single word from Lopez, without a single command from any officer, every one of them brought their right hand up to the brow of their cover. 370 salutes. In silence, held, a father in the family area dropped his phone. A mother in a folding chair started crying. An infant somewhere made a small sound and then went quiet, the way babies do when the air in a room changes. Daniel Calhoun looked across the parking lot at the formation. He saw the salute. He understood it. He held his salute back. 20 feet away, on his knees on the concrete, Marcus Reed was watching all of this. He was watching with the wide, terrified eyes of a man who has finally, completely, all the way down understood the size of the mistake he made. He was watching 370 United States Marines salute the man he had kicked. He couldn't breathe at all now. The panic attack had stolen his lungs. His vision was tunneling. The edges of the parking lot were going dark. His left hand came up to his chest. His right hand slipped off the side of his car. He fell forward onto the concrete, face down, and stopped moving. The medic's truck came around the corner of the Family Services building with its lights on now. The siren chirped once. The truck slowed. 2 paramedics jumped out before it had fully stopped. One went to the wheelchair. Hicks pointed her at Daniel Calhoun. The other one went to the body, lying face down on the concrete, next to the silver Honda. He rolled Marcus over. He felt for a pulse. Then he keyed his radio. Patient is conscious. Vitals erratic. Probable severe panic episode. Possible cardiac. Transporting now. 7 seconds. From the kick to the count of 7, from a man's boot connecting with an old veteran's chest to the same man face down on the concrete with paramedics over him, was 7 seconds. 370 Marines were still saluting. Daniel Calhoun was still standing. The medics got Marcus on a gurney. They strapped him down. He was breathing again in shallow gulps, but he wasn't talking. His eyes were open. He was staring at the sky. 2 base police officers rode with him in the back of the ambulance. They had cuffed his right hand to the rail of the gurney. He was under arrest. The other paramedic, the one who had gone to the wheelchair, was kneeling next to Daniel. She was checking his pulse and asking him questions. He answered her in short, calm sentences. His chest was bruised, but his ribs were intact. His breathing had settled. He had, in his words, taken worse from a corporal in 1957 who had thought he was funny. The paramedic recommended he go to the hospital for an X-ray. Daniel said no. He said he had not come from Tennessee to miss his great-grandson's graduation. He would go after. The general overheard him. The general nodded. The general turned to Sergeant Major Lopez and said, in a low voice, "Move the start time of the ceremony back 20 minutes. Get the master sergeant a chair on the reviewing stand." "The good one." Lopez said, "Yes, sir." 20 minutes later, the parade went on. Daniel Calhoun was in a wooden chair on the reviewing stand. The cap had been recovered. Hicks had brushed it off and placed it on his head with both hands. The general gave a short speech. He had thrown out the one he had prepared. He said 370 young Marines had just done something that morning that he had not asked them to do. He said they had recognized a brother in uniform without being told. He said that was the Marine Corps in 370 bodies, and he was prouder than he had been in a long time. He said There is a master sergeant on this stand today who I want to introduce to you. Daniel did not stand up for that part. His hip wouldn't take any more standing. The cap on his head and the ribbons on his utilities did the standing for him. The general read out the names. Korea. Tutor in Vietnam. Drill instructor at Paris Island, 1968 to 1987. Bronze Star. Purple Heart. Combat V. 3 citations for valor in action. The 370 Marines on the parade deck did not move. But you could see in some of them, the younger ones especially, the small change in the eyes that says, "I want to be him." Daniel's great-grandson crossed the stage 40 minutes later. He was a tall, skinny boy with red hair. His name was Private Daniel Calhoun III. When he saluted the colors, he turned his head a half-inch to the right. He found his great-grandfather's eyes in the crowd. He held the salute 1 beat longer than the other Marines. The old man's hand came up off the arm of the chair. He returned the salute back. Just the two of them. The boy and his great-grandfather. Across 2 generations and 70 years of the same uniform. A photographer for the base newspaper caught that frame. It was on the front page on Monday. It went out on the wire service by Tuesday. By Wednesday, it had been picked up by every news outlet in the country. The video the father in the Hawaiian shirt had taken from the family viewing area went viral first. The phrase that stuck was the one a commentator on the evening news said the next night. He picked the wrong morning, the wrong veteran, and the wrong audience. All at once. That phrase ended up on T-shirts, on bumper stickers, on signs at recruiting stations. Marcus Reed survived. The hospital ruled out a heart attack. It had been a severe stress response. He was discharged into the custody of the federal authorities the next morning. He was charged with assault on a person over 65, assault on a federal military installation, battery on a disabled person. The charges, when they were read in federal court 6 months later, took the bailiff almost 2 minutes to read. He pled out. He took 18 months in federal custody and 3 years of supervised release. He lost his job. He lost his girlfriend. He lost the apartment in Oceanside. The probation he had been on from his last assault charge was revoked. That added another year. His face became a meme. A still frame from the video, the moment he turned around and saw 370 Marines pivoting toward him, was used for 2 years online as the universal image of a man realizing he had made a terrible mistake. He never gave an interview. He never apologized publicly. People who knew him said he had not been the same since. Daniel Calhoun went home to Tennessee that Sunday. He sat on his porch in the late afternoon. His wife brought him a cup of coffee. She asked him how the trip had been. He thought about it for a minute. He said the boy did good. That was all he said about it. To anyone. Ever. He passed away 2 years later, in his sleep in the same house. The Marine Corps sent 4 honor guards from Pendleton for his funeral. One of them was his great-grandson. They folded the flag together. And every year now, at Camp Pendleton, on the morning of the spring graduation, the senior drill instructor tells the new Marines a story. About a man named Iron Dan. About 370 salutes that nobody had ordered. And about 7 seconds in a parking lot that the United States Marine Corps would not, in this lifetime, forget. Believe me, some stories you don't need to make up.